We are ready. Woo. Hello, everyone. Can you guys see all the way there in the back?
Yes.
Yeah, you sure? Can you hear me? Alright. I don't spit that much. So, Iceland. Has anyone been to Iceland? Does anyone know anyone who's been to Iceland? You know me. Does anyone know anything about Iceland?
It's a very beautiful country.
Yes. There are what?
Cold.
It's cold. It is cold. Yes. Lots of geysers. Geysers, yeah? Lots of geysers. Absolutely. Unfortunately, I did not see the geysers while I was there. I took a little bit different than the touristic route, but we'll get into that. So, we'll have some background information about Iceland as a country, Icelandic culture. I'll tell you about my experience in Iceland, and we'll do an ending segment called Only in Iceland. First country that I present where I've not lived is Iceland, so you can see it is very important to me. So some background information to Iceland. Iceland has a population of only 332,000 people. That's like Polotsk and Novopolotsk together times 2. More or less, roughly. That's the whole country. In fact, there's really only like 2 what we would call cities in the whole country as well. Akureyri in the north and the capital Reykjavik in the south. And it has a size 103,000 square kilometers. I believe that's about half the size of Belarus. So it's in the hundreds for everything. Population 182nd, size 106th, and GDP 142nd. So nothing's really happening there. But for my ranking for nature, it is possibly first. It's breathtaking, and you'll see a lot of shots just like this one. In fact, you get tired of the waterfalls, believe that or not. It's like, oh, another waterfall. So, come on in. Hello.
Hello, Sayer.
Hello, hello. Dude, I think you're taller than me. How tall are you? Сколько метров у тебя? 192? 2 meters! Damn! Мне 192, yes? It's not often I have to look up. So, I hope you guys have good eyes in the back. So Iceland, it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, the flight paths from California actually go directly over this region here of Iceland and Greenland. It's actually faster to fly north because the Earth is like a sphere rather than a round ball. So yeah, Iceland's right there. When I flew to Belarus, I had a connection through Berlin, but I actually flew San Francisco to Reykjavik, Reykjavik to Berlin, and then over to Belarus. So today it's used a lot as a hub for air transportation. This is what the actual country, or island, looks like itself. Here's your capital down here, Reykjavik. Airport's about 20 minutes away from there. And this region is known as the West Fjords. Some of those photos that you've seen already of Iceland are I took in this region right up here. This is the northern region. This is where Akureyri is. This is the second city. It's about 100,000. No. It's about Polotsk size. It's about 70,000, I do believe. Reykjavik is about 150. And the rest, which is not much, is spread across the rest of the country. All of the ships from the Faroe Islands and from Great Britain and Denmark come in through here, the ferries. And this is a huge glacier. And there's a volcano here. Does anyone remember in 2010 when the volcano in Iceland went off and all the flights across Europe were shut down because of the particles in the air? That was because of Iceland. So it's an active volcano. I did not connect the Bluetooth speaker yet. And this will give you a little recap. This is if you're interested in Iceland, there's a YouTube channel called Iceland Academy, and they are awesome. And we're gonna see a handful of their videos today. 1 second, I wanna connect this bad boy. Boom. And we're off.
Welcome to Iceland Academy. For those who want to discover a bit more of Iceland, the Golden Heptagon. This magnificent route takes you to the 7 corners of Iceland, the Arctic nature of the north, the dramatic coastline of the east, the natural power of the south, our vibrant capital Reykjavík, the global geopark in Reykjanes Peninsula, the historical locations of the sagas in the west, and the unspoiled wilderness of the Westfjords. So the next time you're planning a trip to Iceland, remember the Golden Heptagon. I promise you won't forget it.
So it's kind of the geography of Iceland is kind of like a hexagon, pointing out some of those same points that I talked about. But how did Iceland get founded, settled? Initially, the first people there were actually Celtic monks, but they never really stayed there and created an establishment which is still today present in Iceland. Those who really founded Iceland were the Scandinavians, mostly the Norwegians. I'm actually more Norwegian than anything else in my heritage. And yeah, so there never really was a lot of people in Iceland. They suffered tremendously through the plagues, like the bubonic plague and whatnot. It was brought over to Iceland as well. A third of the population was killed by that. They were really, it was a rough life in Iceland, I would say, until maybe about 50, 70 years ago. Before then, it really wasn't a beautiful, it was a beautiful place, but it was a tough place to live. And in the 19th century, with the whole gold rush and the New World and the settling of America, Iceland had a population of about 70,000, and 15,000 of those immigrated to the United States. So they've always had a kind of a population problem. I don't know if you call it a problem today, but they've had a small population to begin with. They gained independence from Denmark in 1944. You might think that had to do with something with World War II, but it was actually a treaty that they signed with Denmark about 25 years prior that said, hey, after 25 years, we can decide if we still want to be a part of the Danish Empire or if we want to be independent. And they said, yes, we want to be independent. And in 1944, they became a country of their own. And for international affairs, in 1986, Gorbachev and Reagan met in Reykjavik as Reykjavik hosted a summit, which led to the talks, which later led to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. That took place, the summit took place in Reykjavik. So why Iceland? When I first went there, I was told some tale that, people wanted, they did not want a lot of immigrants to come to Iceland, so they said, this is the cold and cold place, it's all ice. Go to Greenland. It's further away, it's bigger, and it's green. That's what I was told. It's actually a false tale. The reason, and there are other false tales of the wars, the Viking wars that are going on in Norway. People are going to Iceland and saying, no, let's call it Iceland so people don't come here, our enemies don't follow us here. History actually says this is false. The true tale, now Icelandic names are very difficult. I'll try to get in this. They call this guy the Raven. Folki Vilgardarsson actually landed in Vanders which is really, this is in the West Fjords. I took this picture, it's actually really close to this, not that far at all. And he stayed there a winter and he was fishing, but they did not prepare for the winter well enough, and in the winter all his cattle died. And in the spring, before leaving, he hiked up on top of the fjords in the distance of the area where he was in, similar to this, in the spring, and he only saw ice-packed mountains and ice everywhere. And in his frustration, when he went back to Norway, he said, it's just an ice-covered land, and he lost most of his money and all of his livestock, and he was really, really frustrated about his rough winter in Iceland, and he spread the story of this ice-packed land. And that's how it actually became Iceland. He actually, later on in his life, returned to the Reykjavik region and was a permanent settler of Iceland. But he's been accredited with calling it Iceland. Now, why Greenland? Yeah, makes you think, how did that get that name? How did Greenland get its name? Greenland is actually much more icy than Iceland. And this guy named Eric the Red, also a Norwegian, fled from Norway and went to Iceland first, and then decided to go further on to Greenland and settled in Greenland. And he was a marketer, and so he said, "Oh yeah, this is Greenland. Come here, people, you know, settle in Greenland." He wanted to bring more people to Greenland. Didn't really work out. Greenland's really not a habitable place to live, but yeah, Greenland. Does anyone know who, let's say, rules over Greenland? It's actually not a country. It's under someone else's rule. It's a Nordic country. Anyone know? Denmark. Greenland belongs to Denmark, even today. Come on in. Hello. No problem. Hello. So, Iceland, almost said Greenland, Iceland really prides themselves with women's rights and women's suffrage. They got a women's right to vote, occurred in 1915. And there was this day in 1975 when 90% of the Icelandic women basically took the day off. They didn't take care of the kids, they didn't go to work, they just went to the geysers or to the hot, let's say the hot tubs, the thermal pools, and they did not do anything that day. They took the entire day off because they wanted equal rights. And that was a huge, I would say, transition point in Iceland, because only 5 years later they elected the first female president of a democratic election in the history of the world, actually. And she would continue to rule Iceland from 1980 to 1996, 16 years. She's still alive today. Vigdís Finnbogadóttir. Did not say that correctly. She was the first female president of Iceland and all of Europe, and like I said, first democratically elected female president in the world. She's held office longer than any other female in history and of any head of a state of any country in the world. And today she is the UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. And you can meet her right here.
We are very forward-thinking, I think, when we come to equal rights.
We are, of course, one of the Nordic countries, and the Nordic countries have been considered very advanced in equal rights.
Being a woman in the arts and in music, it's great to be growing up in an environment where I feel like my potential are seen, and I'm given the same opportunities as boys are.
Women in Iceland decided to take a day off, and it became world known because they proved, when they walked out from institutions and everywhere, from the homes even, that women are pillars of society as well as men. It's a very sad thing that somehow society has managed to pay men better than women. And we know that it is done by labeling the work of men differently from the work of women. And that is now what women are trying to correct by working out again.
There's a lot of things that have changed, probably.
It's first and foremost the emancipation of women. There were only 2-3 women in the parliament for over 70 years. But now the miracle is that half of the members of parliament are women today.
And that is remarkable. It is not considered totally shocking that a woman could be president or something like that. Is, you know, it's so empowering.
What I've been trying to say to women is get educated, if you possibly can.
Yes, definitely. And not to be afraid of speaking up and talking about the issue and trying to be educated and having a discussion with other women, trying to figure out like, how you can better your community and your society.
Because through reading they get information, and through information they learn how to handle things in their societies.
I feel very fortunate growing up here and being a woman from Iceland and having these opportunities.
There is no doubt that Iceland can be a role model for equal rights in the world.
Do you know who the woman on the left was? Have you heard of Monsters and Men? Do you know that group? Monsters and Men? We'll see them later. She's the lead singer of that group. I think when you hear the song, you'll recognize it. So I think you'll be surprised that these groups are from Iceland. I think you'll recognize some of these. This is Sigaros. Maybe you don't know them, but the next group I think you'll know. Iceland has a lot of, I would say, heavy metal music, but also independent kind of indie music as well. And some of the best music festivals in the world actually take place in Iceland too. But maybe you've recognized these. This is Sigaros, and the next one will be of Monsters and Men. They actually play a lot of soundtracks for films, and so I'd be surprised if no one's ever heard their music before. You probably just never knew who made that soundtrack. But they make a lot of soundtracks, and it's different than your pop music. You feel that it's much different, a little more poppy, but also folky. Poppy is I don't even know if that's a word, but is of Monsters and Men, and I am sure some of you have heard of this song before. She was in the earlier video.
So hold my hand, I walk with you, my dear.
The stars creep as you sleep, it's keeping me awake.
It's the house telling you to close your eyes.
And some days I can't even trust myself.
It's killing to see this way. 'Cause though the truth may vary, this ship will carry on. Bodies into shore.
Has anyone heard that? Yes. Yes. Okay, you've heard of some Icelandic music then. Awesome. Who likes football? 1, 2, 3. Only the guys. It's a room full of women, so I'm not surprised we don't have more football fans. But did you watch Euro 2016?
Yeah.
Yes? Some of you watched that? Did anyone watch Iceland? They were an amazing story this year. So in Euro 2016, these guys represented Iceland, and it was the first time in football history that Iceland played in a major international tournament, like the World Cup or like the Euro Championship, and it's just unbelievable. So in the group round, they tied Portugal, almost beat them. Ronaldo, I don't like Ronaldo that much at all. Almost beat Ronaldo. Tied Portugal, tied Hungary, and then beat Austria in the third match. And they advanced with Hungary to the next stage in the Euro 2016 this year, to the round of 16, and then they matched up against England. And I was like, oh, okay, great, this little team, Iceland, they did really well. They made it to the group, they made it out of the group stage into the top 16. What a great show that was, yeah? And then they beat England. Iceland beat England in football in the Euro 2016, 2-1. I saw this match with my friend in the north of Norway, and it was, oh, did anyone see that? Did you see that? Yes! It was amazing! It was truly amazing. They went on to play France, the host of the whole tournament. They lost to France, but to make it to the top 8, Iceland, it was a beautiful Cinderella story, I would say. And when they came back to Iceland, mind you, the country's only 300,000 people, 330 so. I mean, to beat England, one of the world's soccer, superpowers. I mean, that was truly amazing. I just think of,
By the way, they are amateur football players. They're not professional ones.
Yeah. The coach, I think he's like a dentist on his free time and stuff. It's not their career. Hello. Exactly, they're amateur football players. They have other jobs. I'm sure there's a professor in the bunch, And so when they came back to Reykjavik, they were given a Vikings hero's welcome, and it looked like this. They actually did this on the field when they beat England too. That's like maybe a quarter of the entire population of the country, just for their welcoming party. And for the Euro 2016 as a whole, 8% of the entire country actually went to France and attended the matches. 8% of the entire population of the country. And when they played Austria in the last round of the group stage, 99.8% of the Icelandic population who have TVs watched that match. 99.8% of the nation's television audience watched that match. I mean, we have the Super Bowl in America. There's maybe half, like 50% of the country watches that. 99? I mean, that is, and the Super Bowl is our biggest event, but it's truly amazing. And the whole country of Iceland was behind their team, and I think a lot of the world as well. I was. I think our friend here was as well. I was really rooting them on. It was really cool. You look at 2010, they were ranked 112th in the world, and this year they're ranked 34th. Massive improvement. So, what other great things are there about Iceland? We're totally like selling Iceland to you all today. I could be the travel, planner, isn't it? Iceland has the highest number of bookstores per capita in the world. This is actually Reykjavik, nice little picture. And they have a Nobel Prize winner for literature. His name is Hollendar Lockness, and he won the Nobel Prize for literature in 1955. He's the only Icelandic person to ever win a Nobel Prize. Do you know who won the Nobel Prize this year for literature? We said it earlier this semester. He's not just an author. No.
Last year it was the Belarusian.
Last year was?
Last year, Belarusian, Svetlana Alexievich.
Really?
Yes, last year. And this year...
Bob Dylan.
Yes, Bob Dylan.
Who was the Belarusian last year?
Last year, Svetlana Alexievich. She wrote a lot of things about war.
Wow. Okay.
Afghanistan war and the Second World War.
And do you know, this is really a deep question, how many Belarusians have been awarded a Nobel Prize in the past?
I can't remember any of them. Probably she was the first.
Okay. Wow.
She was the first and the only.
Wow.
Yes.
Impressive. Very impressive. Icelandic language. Icelandic language, as they're on an island, it's really been almost, let's say, unchanged for the last 1,000 years. And it's the modern day best representation of what ancient Vikings used to speak. And if you take ancient Norwegian texts, Viking texts from 1,000 years ago, Icelandic people can read them, and the Norwegians themselves cannot. Because the language has not changed in this amount of time. It's changed, of course, a little bit, but not like you've seen in other parts of Scandinavia, in Norway, in Sweden, and whatnot. So we'll hear a little bit of what Icelandic sounds like here.
Raquel's gonna basically teach us a little bit of Icelandic. And how do you actually say the language Icelandic in Iceland?
Íslenska.
Íslenska.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. So I'm gonna say the words and then she's gonna repeat in Íslenska.
Íslensku, yeah.
Perfect. Hello.
Hi.
Goodbye.
Bless.
How are you?
Hvernig hefur þú það?
Where are you from?
Hvaðan ertu?
How much does this cost?
Hvað kostar þetta mikið?
Glacier?
Jökull.
Mountains?
Fjöll.
Waterfall?
Foss.
Car?
Bíl.
Money?
Peningar.
Hot dog?
Pulsa.
Soup?
Súpa.
People?
Fólk.
Horse?
Hestur.
Animal?
Dýr.
Tomatoes?
Tómatar.
Cucumbers?
Gúrkur.
Thank you for coming to Iceland.
Takk fyrir að koma til Íslands.
Takk fyrir að komast til Ísland. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Bye.
So you hear some similarities. Tomatas, supa.
Agurki, like in Belarusian language.
Yeah.
Cucumbers, agurki.
Really?
In Belarusian
Wow.
language is agurki.
That's cool. I recognize like folk from German, like a Deutscher Folk. So people for them, folk.
Yes, folklore.
Yes,
Russian
folklore.
language, yes, folklore.
So cuisine in Iceland, naturally as an island, they have a lot of fish. They actually have a lot of shark. We'll talk about that after this little video.
Hello, my name is Ylva. Welcome to Iceland Academy. In today's class, we'll be exploring Icelandic food. Us Icelanders are one of the healthiest and longest living nations. And we credit our food ingredients as they are one of the best in the world. Our beautiful nature produces some of the purest ingredients on the planet. Our sheep live free, roaming the highland in the summertime, and the vegetables are in season all year round. And our fish is super fresh and sustainably sourced. And when the ingredients are this good, it doesn't just taste good, it makes you feel good. Delicious. And don't forget to show your thanks for the meal. In Iceland we say...
So the sheep do roam free completely over the entire country. And later I'll show a little bit more of that, but you have to look out more for sheep on the road than actual cars. There's more sheep than people in the country. And they showed some cows. I never saw cows there, just sheep everywhere. So some other traditional cuisine includes fermented shark. I have not had it, but I heard it smells really bad. And smoked lamb. That's what you have here. Of course, sheep, lamb are roaming everywhere. And there's some. This is a traditional meal total: rye bread, the shark, and the smoked lamb. Can anyone try to say that? Do you want to try? And the classic Icelandic fast food would be hot dogs. You see hot dogs everywhere. That's like, we saw in Germany there was the doner kebab, in Iceland it's the hot dog. I think I've seen the same in Sweden as well. I think that kind of goes with the whole Nordic region. One particular thing that I witnessed in Iceland was that a lot of people believe in elves. There's actually an elf school, a school for detecting elves. And one of the people who I couch surfed with, do you know what couch surfing is? You stay at someone's place, it's a community online, you stay at their place for free, and you spend the time together basically, and you get to know the local people, they get to interact with travelers, and this guy told me a story of how his grandmother's best friend was supposedly taken away by elves for 2 weeks, just disappeared. Yes, and it was like he told it honestly, yeah. And then came back. I was like, oh yeah, she was in the hills, like, you know, drinking tea with them, and they totally believed it. And the theory is that if you have a rock from the seaside that has a natural hole in it, so it's a rock and there's a hole in the rock, like a circle in the rock, and you look through that, then you can see the invisible people, the elves. This is a little more about folklore in Iceland.
Elves and trolls hold a special place in the hearts of the people of Iceland. The tradition and mythology of the country's small folk dates back to the 10th century AD, when the first Norwegian Vikings settled on the island. Tales of elves were first mentioned in Iceland's medieval literature, and most of these epic poems of battles and encounters between elves, trolls, and Norwegian Vikings have survived partly because the Icelandic language has remained almost unchanged in more than 1,000 years.
The elves is something that we are actually brought up with. It's just a part of our mindset. It's not talked about whether we believe they exist or not. It's just a huge part of our history. It's something that we grow up with. I don't know how they would feel today. I think they would actually try and protect us. So they are so much part of our environment, whether or not they exist or not.
Magnus Skarphéðinsson is a self-proclaimed elf and troll expert, as well as the founder of the country's first and only elf school.
Well, according to my files, there are at least 13 different types of elves. They are from 5 centimeters up to meters. There are about 3 species of hidden people, which is totally human-sized people. And then we have gnomes and dwarves and fairies, which have wings, and we have trolls and a lot of other invisible beings that do exist here.
In the past 2 decades, he has collected hundreds of stories of alleged encounters between Icelanders and non-human entities.
Well, these stones, 1971, they were in the middle of the place where the highways are. And when the state road company wanted to smash them because they wanted to build the highway, everything went wrong here. The workers were sick and the machines were overheated and broke down. So in the end, the director of the company got a psychic man here to talk with the elves and hidden people in the stones.
Magnus claims that 54% of Icelanders believe in elves and trolls.
I once saw an elf walking home from school. It was little, cute, and with colorful clothes. He was with other elves. They seemed happy and didn't talk to each other. They were just walking and jumping.
I'm not so sure about the elves. For me, it's just a fairy tale. I used to believe in them when I was a kid. I thought I saw them back then. We always used to say, I saw an elf, but I think it was just about being a kid.
Has anyone here seen an elf? No? The same story that they told in this about the construction workers trying to build a highway through these rocks, and the pickaxe is breaking and the machine's breaking. I was told the exact same story. And when I saw that video, I was like, that's what the guy told me. So there are these folklore, these tales that even this, even the state supports. So it's, yeah. The friend I traveled with to Iceland actually was very interested in this. But my personal experience in Iceland, I was there a year and a half ago, and being the poor traveler I was, and Iceland's very expensive, I went with a friend, we rented a car, and we lived out of our car for I think about 12 days. You can camp anywhere in Iceland. And if you stay off of the nature, like there's some nature reserves where there's some animals, like some birds who are nesting. If you don't camp in those regions, then you can camp anywhere. If you're, I think it's like 100 meters away from a structure, you can camp for one night. So if you're 100 meters away from a building, you can camp there for one night, private or public land. And yeah, we made full use of that. And we camped across the entire island. What we did was we started, of course, in Reykjavik. It's the only place you can really fly into. And we drove up to the western fjords, went all the way around the western fjords where most tourists do not go, came over to the north, to Akureyri, the other city, out of Reykjavik, came across this region here that has They have a blue lagoon where you can, it's like the hot pools. The geothermal energy is huge, and they also heat a lot of their country and their roads with geothermal energy. And so one of these geothermal pools called the Blue Lagoon came up in here to the north and saw some of the largest waterfalls in the whole country, and continued down the whole rest of the coast, past the glacier, all the way back to Reykjavik. And I can honestly tell you, of all 70 plus countries I've been to, this one left one of the best impressions, if not the best. And so, like I said, we camped everywhere. And when you camp, you can have views outside of your front door like this. So this is our tent, and this was the view that we had of that. This picture is actually taken right around midnight. It was on summer solstice on June 22nd, 2015. And the sun never went down. The sun came here, went across the horizon, and went right back up. The sun never set the whole night. And yeah, you can just imagine this fog layer came in, and it was just alive. It was like creeping up on the mountains, on the hillside. Some of the best photography I've ever been able to shoot in my life was here. But like I said, we camped everywhere, next to a river, next to a little volcano. I mean, camping everywhere in the whole country. But what really got me, it wasn't the elves, it wasn't the fermented shark, it was the changing landscapes. And the way that you would drive across Iceland and you'd feel in some places like you're on the moon. Other places felt like you just were in a battlefield, that it was like a war ground and artillery shells had just gone off. And then you'd be in this huge fjord land. I mean, we'll go through this here. I mean, it started off, our journey was kind of rocky, a little bit of moss, but fjords, driving in and out of fjords. And then you get higher into the mountains, and the rockiness turns more into green. You start to see patches of snow, mountains way bigger, taller than you could ever imagine in Belarus. And then snow. And everything was covered in snow. Everywhere you looked was snow. You're driving on snow. This is my good friend Brian. And then you come out of the mountains and it's all green fields and pastures. As far as you can see is green. As far as you can see. And that greenness turns into lava rock. This is a huge mound of just lava rock left over from volcanic eruptions. And the whole, this stuff is hard and sharp and nasty. There's no way you can camp in this. This is a whole nother world. It felt like the moon. Here's a crater there, a volcano. It seriously was like a lunar landscape. Or I felt it was like a battlefield. It just felt like everything had just exploded right in front of you before you came there. And in this place you were attacked with flies. These flies they were attracted to carbon dioxide. So they were all in the car, and as soon as you got out of the car you were fine until you started to breathe. And when you breathe out, they'd all come. And it was only this little segment in the north, next to this lake. It was the weirdest thing. I'd never seen these bugs that were so attracted to carbon dioxide that as soon as you breathed out, boom, they're coming at your face. It was so crazy. And now that really rocky, almost lunar, battlefield-like volcanic rock, then all of a sudden is covered with 1/2 meter of moss. This is the same landscape, but here this moss grows. This moss is about this thick. And if you, this is like volcanic rock that just, fell here and stayed there for hundreds of years. And moss grows on this, and you can literally just fall onto this volcanic rock like that, and it's like a bed. It was so amazing. It was the softest moss in the world. The tent there was on this much moss. It was like, a mattress. It just blew my mind how, boom, like that, moss covered all of that volcanic activity. And you go further, and you see huge valleys, huge, and look, this is like canyons with a raging river that comes through it. You follow that river along, and you would see huge waterfalls. That came out of order. But this is the only place in the whole country that they have trees, that they actually have kind of like a forest. The country does not have trees. Can you imagine a country with no trees? This is really one of the only places in the entire country that has trees. And it's said to be, by legend, that Pegasus lifted off here. It's shaped like a horseshoe. It comes in like this, and you have a high point here, and you have this high point all the way around. And it's said to be that this was Pegasus' foot. It's right before the Atlantic Ocean. It's right up here. And it's said that he landed and pushed off and jumped into the sky. That was the folklore of how this was created. And I was going through my photos and I saw this and I realized, whoa, it looks like I'm jumping off there. I don't know how I did it. I guess I was jumping here, but it really looked like I was jumping into Pegasus' foot. But then you'd continue along further, and I mean, no cars could ever be seen. You know, like I said, you look out more for the sheep than the cars. You come around the corner and you're worried about sheep. And you come to huge black beaches, just sand, just covered with such dark black beaches and the contrasting blue, pure water, you know, but Atlantic Ocean water coming up against it. And not a human anywhere. I mean, you go further along and you come across it's the largest glacier in all of Europe. And this glacier then pieces would break off and you could hear it cracking and crunching while you're next to it. Pieces would break off like this and float out in the river, out into the Atlantic Ocean. And these pieces are like the size of cars. I mean, this is like a car right here. These are huge pieces of ice that flow out into the ocean, and then they're banged with the waves as they come out into the ocean, and a lot of them are pushed back up on shore, on those black beaches, and it's like a graveyard for icebergs. A graveyard for these pieces of glacier. Because they flow out here, they're banged with the waves, they're pushed back up onto the black beaches, and they melt. And all across you just see melting pieces of ice. It's just naturally been pushed there from the glacier into the ocean, back onto the beach. A graveyard of icebergs. It was fascinating. A lot of tourists, and this is a must if you go to Iceland, they go to the hot springs. It's basically all naturally geothermal heated water. They have some muds and stuff you can also put on your face, and it is so relaxing. But you must wash yourself very well before. They're very picky about that. We'll get to that. There also was an American, on these black beaches, further along, there was an American World War II plane that still stands there after all 75 years. It's actually a mechanical failure as it came out of Keflavik Airport in Reykjavik, landed on the beach, they left it there, it's still there today. So, finally, only in Iceland. These are things that were particular to Iceland that I think you'll find interesting. Only in Iceland do you get overloaded with waterfalls. Literally saw hundreds of waterfalls in 12 days, and you're like, oh, another waterfall. Don't really care. Okay? I mean, they all have names, and they're all, a waterfall, as we learned, is foss. So you have, goodness gracious, I'll try, okay? Seljalandsfoss, Skodafoss, Golfoss, Dittifoss, Godafoss, Svatifoss, Haranfossa, Alderiafoss, Ofirarufus, Alafoss, and you're just getting fussing started, yeah? The fusses are everywhere. And moreover, you can drink the water right out of them. We never bought water, we just drink it right out of the lake, right out of the river. And it's the coldest water your hands will, it's seriously just from the glaciers. All of the bridges are only one lane. You only see one lane, one car, one lane. And here's a small one, but many of them were maybe 1/4 of a kilometer long. And only one lane of a bridge. Hello. And so one lane bridges, if you remember last week, that you have to look out more for the sheep than you do for the cars, because there's more sheep in the country than people, and the sheep are much more dangerous on the road. Imagine you're going over that point where you cannot see, and you're definitely like, oh, there's sheep, other sheep, other sheep. Oh no, it's okay. Because exactly, you'll see this on the other side. And they always seem to go in pairs of 3. I always saw, I don't know why, but they were always in pairs of 3. But the sheep are everywhere, everywhere. around that whole island, this fascinated me. The gas was the same price everywhere. I know most of you have never purchased gas before, but in the United States, if you have a gas station like this, the price will be about 3 times higher than it is at this place because of the logistics of transporting it out there to the middle of nowhere. But it was €1.60 everywhere, the entire island. Like I said earlier, there's really no forests. You have this huge mountainous landscape here, and you can see why, Game of Thrones, which is like Lord of the Rings, would be filmed here. Look at that, yeah? But no forests, no forests. And there's no family names. You do not have a family name. Everyone's family name is their father's first name and then son or daughter at the end of that. So this was the Icelandic football team for Euro 16, and we see Halldórsson, Kristersson, Jonsson, Skulason, Magnusson, Hermansson, Sigurdsson, all sons, the entire team. There's also some Icelandic words that people speak while they're breathing in. They speak while breathing in the Icelandic language. And she says some of them here.
Jæja, já, já, jú, já, jú, jæja, já.
So some of the words they speak, they say it when they're coming, when you're breathing in. Try it. It's so. I can't even do it. If you try it, it's really hard. I can't even do it. Right? Try it at home in the bathroom, something. But it's weird. It's really difficult. Violent crime is also just about absent in Iceland. The Global Peace Index rates Iceland as the least violent and the most safe, secure country in the world. There was a, in 2013, for the first time in the history of the country, the police killed a man. And prior to 2013, the police had never killed anyone. And you look at that compared to the United States, it's a continuing issue for us with gun violence and violence on both sides, with police against against citizens and citizens against police. It goes both ways. And in Iceland, a citizen had never been killed by the police until 2013. Iceland also has no army. The U.S. Was stationed in Iceland until 2006. Now they have no standing army. They're only one of a very few countries who have no army at all. And hitchhiking in Iceland is completely safe and acceptable. And some people get around the entire country just hitchhiking. So I can tell you to sum up, so you can hitchhike around the country, or one of my good friends, he actually chose to run around the country of Iceland, and I'll show you this beautiful clip that he made about that.
Erlu, góðu Erlu sem giftist mér því ég kunni að skaffa sjómaður og sonur að snappa. Hlakka svo til að hitta börnin, Maríu, Hænu, Hafþór og Örnin, vinna upp tíma, klippa smá og líma í eltingaleik fram að 8 tíma. Ég þekki ekki annað, afi var harmenni annar var mamma, sultuslögnuna, systir mín Gunna
þunna brósi var örugglega ekki minn frændi, rendi mig æskunni.
So that's my friend Carell, and he actually does these running videos around the entire world. And he's putting together a video where it looks like he runs across the entire world, from Iceland to Taj Mahal to New Zealand. But I like this one particularly because he shows a lot of the different sides of Iceland, like you've also seen in the presentation. So lastly, last part about Iceland before we get on to the next topic. Bathing naked with your coworkers is completely okay. Kind of like the banya situation here in Belarus. I've experienced that already, and for an American, I knew what to expect. It's all good, but I guess we're not as open about being naked in the U.S. But this is something that we would not typically do. But the Icelanders, they definitely go bathing in the hot springs with their coworkers, and it's all good. You just have to make sure they're really strict about personal hygiene before you get in. And this was a video from the Icelandic Academy, which we watched last week as well, about bathing in the hot springs. This will be the last piece of Iceland.
Hello, my name is Guðmundur. Welcome to Iceland Academy. In today's class, we'll be talking about one of our favorite activities, hot tubbing. We take hygiene very seriously, and everyone is required to take a shower before entering the pool area. So, remember the little rhyme? Heads, armpits, crotch and toes, crotch and toes. Head, armpits, crotch and toes, crotch and toes. Head, armpits, crotch and toes. There we have it, squeaky clean. Now, on with the butter. Hot tubs are very important to the Icelandic people. In here, we are all equal, and no topic is off limits. So come to Iceland, where you feel nice, warm, and relaxed.
So this Iceland Academy series on YouTube is actually really well done. And those of you who were here last week, you saw some of those videos as well. So now we'll move on to refugees. That is the topic for this week, and was the Icelandic part. We just had to finish up from last week because of the fire, but we'll get that going right now. I just make a new file on the camera, and we're good to go.